Just out of curiosity, even though I'm not standing in front of the mic, can you all hear me? Can you hear him? Say something. Something. All right. We're just going to get started in 1 minute. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, I can.
So he was an opera.
Was. Am.
A opera singer, so he should be able to project. I was a DJ at one time, so I should be able to project really well as well.
But he is right. We should speak into the.
Yeah. So.
Great.
In tandem. Can you hear us now? Can you hear us now?
All right. So is it time? It is time. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Big Easy, streamlined front-end development with Pattern Lab and Twig. There's a bit.ly link to the slides. It'll be all on the last slide as well, so not to worry. So here we go. So who dat? What they do? It's New Orleans speak. So first we'll do some basic introductions. My name is Adam Duran. It's my Twitter handle, Adam Duran Tenor. I'm a senior front-end developer at Forum 1, and in addition to doing that, I sing opera and apparently jazz this morning. And I also am a student of Kung Fu. And this is...
Chaz Chumley. I'm a technical architect at Forum 1. I am also a Drupal evangelist. And in the meantime, I like heckling Morton, as well as being a disc jockey. Actually, a really well-known disc jockey, but only in my basement.
So we both work for Forum 1. Forum 1 is a full-service digital agency that crafts solutions for the world's most influential organizations, such as...
long laundry list of great clients, one of those being Global Innovation Exchange. I'll be doing a business talk tomorrow on Global Innovation Exchange. It will not be about how great we are or all the great stuff we do, but it'll actually be about how great a client they are. So make sure you come check that out.
So, Pattern Lab and Twig, right? As the late, great Victor Hugo said, nothing is stronger than an idea whose time has come. So we're going to here's the basic agenda, and we'll just take you through where we are now with, or where you may have come from with Pattern Lab and Twig and Drupal, how you may have worked up until now, what we call the Big Easy, what we see as a huge step forward in combining those elements. We have a great demo for you, just a proof of concept, and then lots of time for questions, because I'm hoping you have a bunch. So the story so far, we have Pattern Lab. How many people here have worked with Pattern Lab before? Yes. All right. Pattern Lab with Mustache or Pattern Lab with Twig? Mustache, Twig? All right, a few people. All right. So I think that's most of you who have not worked with Pattern Lab, so we are going to have to show them Pattern Lab. Pattern Lab is a custom static site generator that constructs, I cannot read today, an interface by stitching atoms, molecules, and organisms together to form templates and pages. Its philosophy parallels several core tenets of OOP, such as DRY, don't repeat yourself, and KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Tell us about Twig.
I should actually have Morton come up and tell us about Twig, but what he would say is, Twig fucking rocks. Thank you. Twig, you can read the slide for yourself, but the thing about Twig is it makes Drupal 8 30% more awesomer.
And as I'm sure you all know by now, Drupal 8 adopted Twig as its templating engine, and it allows us to more clearly separate the presentation and content layers. So what does that mean? How does this all work together? Well, we're about to find out. So I am actually just going to read this. The original version of Pattern Lab uses Mustache templates, and there's been a Twig version for about a year. And what's now possible is that you can have a Twig a Pattern Lab starter kit with Twig templates that mirrors Drupal's Twig templates. And let that sink in for a second. You can have the same templates. So you could maybe make the change in one and have it already be changed in the other.
Shut up.
Yeah, seriously.
What?
Really? And so, as you can imagine, and this is what gets me so excited, is the ramifications of this are ginormous. We can, not only can we take full control of the markup, but we don't have to negotiate with developers. You don't have to ask your developers, oh, I need this class in this place, and then they do that and it's in the wrong place, and it's a nightmare. I get so frustrated.
How many back-end developers are in the room?
Sorry.
You need to find a new job. The front-end developer.
To the mic, talking to the mic.
The front-end developers, the paradigm shift is about to take place, so it's already starting to take place. The front-end developers actually have a lot more control. Well, you know, I take that back. You can still do site building.
So, the hard way. This is where Pattern Lab lives next to Drupal. They kind of interact.
Like siblings?
Yeah, like in the back seat of your car. Don't touch me, this is my side.
No, this is my side.
Like that. So these are the front-end development blues. So you know how this works. You git clone Pattern Lab into your theme directory, and you build out your patterns and your CSS, and then you get to argue back and forth with your back-end developers. Sorry, guys, we do love you. About how the markup is wrong.
You mean I can't put that in display suite page panel?
Stop. Because here's the markup I wanted. I made it in Pattern Lab first, and then it ends up in 3 different places, and Flexbox blows up, and I have a nice Picasso-esque page. Has this ever happened to anyone here besides me? Yeah. It's a little frustrating. I mean, we have to work together, but it's frustrating. I get frustrated. And so when you need to bang your head, there you go. So, but as it is said, everything is hard before it is easy. So this is the big easy. The shared Twig templates between Pattern Lab and Drupal. And this is, it can all work simply. It's not that you don't ever have to talk to your developers again. There are things to work out, machine names, class names, but all that back and forth negotiating markup never has to happen again.
So let's talk about what those easy ingredients are. First of all, we got a Pattern Lab integrated Drupal 8 theme. And I want to give mad props to Alexi Peebles. Yep, Weebles wobbles and they don't fall down. If you take a look at his GitHub repo, it was a great starting point for us to look at, and we had some talks earlier among some other speakers. And so we're actually starting to solidify that we're just not being crazy going off on this big easy tangent. Actually, there's a couple of other shops that are starting to realize this as well. And one of those is, how many people are here familiar with the Gesso theme that we had for Drupal 7? Couple. So we're hardly working?
Heartily.
Heartily working?
Heartily.
Heartily working? We're working on it for Drupal 8. The other thing to think about is, with these easy ingredients, is package dependency managers. NPM, Bower. Oh, and this one that we really need to get used to using, Composer.
And why is that?
This little thing called Drupal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How many people here use Gulp? How many people here use Grunt? Okay, you guys can fight outside about it. So they're both task builders, okay, for running the development builds, generating Pattern Lab, compiling SAS, rebuilding the Drupal cache, among other things.
So as Chaz just said, we're building on Alexi Peebles' work, and you should definitely check out his blog, his website. There's a blog, and we'll have links to his GitHub. You can see all the work he's done, and we're going to cover various aspects of it a little more as we go on. So tell us about the architecture as well.
Sure. So being a tech arc / front end manager / Drupal evangelist. All these things kind of run around your head when you started taking a look at Drupal 8 a while back. And two things that really stuck out. First of all was how the front-end development team was utilizing Pattern Lab to be able to actually go off and take the designs and generate all the markup, all the CSS, all the interactivity before we even had to worry about doing any type of site building. Okay, light bulb went off. Wow, we can get a big jump start on this. Then came along the ability to actually take Pattern Lab, put it in the theme as well. So now you actually are mirroring these two things so that you had Pattern Lab, which was using Mustache at the time, along with Drupal 8 and Twig, until along came Pattern Lab with Twig, and now we have a perfect marriage between these two. The next thing was a starter kit that Alexi actually generated, which diverging kind of from what we actually realized we were supposed to use, because we have our Pattern Lab actually inside our theme, and we use the source directory, which we'll see here in a little bit. So we started diverging from his model, which actually had, because a starter kit you can drop into any theme you want. You're not having to worry about the other structure there with it. But with the challenge with that, with the starter kit, was it wasn't really kind of normalized from my mindset. We wanted source to be inside the Pattern Lab source. We didn't want it to be outside. We didn't want to have to generate some additional things. Nothing wrong with that method, by the way, okay? But we actually normalized this a bit to bring the directory structure back into Pattern Lab where we were used to working with it.
So as you can see from this diagram, on the left you have a directory structure for the Lexi's Shyla theme. On the right, our Big Easy theme. And the biggest difference is that he has a starter kit, which is parallel, a sibling to Pattern Lab, and inside there's a dist folder, and dist is basically the Pattern Lab source folder. And because we use Gesso as our main theme at Forum 1, and we use it as a base theme, we just saw this as just an extra layer of complexity. So we got rid of the dist, we moved it back as source into the main Pattern Lab folder, as you can see on the right side.
So that voodoo, they do so well. There's actually two really cool key components to this. I'm gonna kind of flip these actually in order of the slides here, but first is a few patches actually to Pattern Lab and the Pattern Lab Twig version that actually helped kind of bring these two more in line by utilizing something that's called a data transform plugin. So how many people have been doing any type of theming in Drupal 8 so far? Okay, cool. So you're used to using attributes, right? Attributes.add class, attributes.add attribute. And so those are generated, in Drupal as well as you can add to it as well. But what if you could turn around inside of Twig and actually utilize those same attributes?
Twig inside of Pattern Lab. So what if you could use in the JSON files for any given Twig template and have your attributes inside of that, and then have those pass, have the JSON, pass those attributes into the Twig template on the Pattern Lab side, be the exact same structure as what PHP is passing from Drupal into the Twig templates on the Drupal side. If they mirror each other, the syntax can be identical, what the data getting passed in is identical, the template can be the same. Mind blown.
So, better than Tabasco? Maybe. I love Tabasco, but it's actually the secret sauce, the data transform plugin.
Cool. So now we're going to have a demonstration and show you how this all works.
Any terminal window users? Okay, good. You're like, what the heck is that? So a couple different things real quick. So imagine Pattern Lab, the way that you would actually generate it. Okay, I'm just going to run through a couple different things here. Those things are going to be actually going into the Pattern Lab folder itself, running Composer install, or in this case, since I already have it installed, Composer update. Make sure there's any dependencies that need to be pulled down. Then jump up a level, run npm install and bower install. As I'm running these, I'm going to go ahead and talk about a couple other things. So let's take a look real quick where we're at. Let's actually go into Pattern Lab. I sure can. Is that good?
Can you all read that?
So Composer, hopefully you're already utilizing Composer. How many people here use Drush? Okay, so obviously you had to install Composer at some point to actually be able to get Drush working with your Drupal 8 instances. So Composer is just a dependency manager. It's actually going and updating some dependencies right now for me, or it's actually going and taking out. Look out in the interweb, so to speak, and hopefully the conference Wi-Fi will play nicely. This is where Morton said, you should have recorded it. I know all your tricks by now.
Do you want to show them how to do that?
Yep.
There we go. Hey.
It's like, psych.
Psych.
All right, so now I'm going to jump up a level, okay, and I'm actually going to run npm install. Sorry, mouse cursor is deciding to go down there. All right, so npm install is going in, grabbing anything that I have specified in a package.json file.
Do you want to show them Paddle Lab while
Yep. While that's running real quick, for those that maybe have not seen Pattern Lab before,
So,
I'll let you go and talk about
sure.
that.
So we recently relaunched the Forum 1 website in Drupal 8, and this is the Pattern Lab for it. And Pattern Lab, in a nutshell, allows you to, more than just style guide, it allows you to create, I'm just going to scroll here, you can set all your basic colors, fonts, all your block quote, everything is already, so anytime someone uses a block quote, this is how it's going to come out. Anytime all your basic, lists, but it gets way more complicated. So you have a numbered list, you have filters, tables, you can have a pattern for anything that you want. We have a version of Pattern Lab for Gesso that covers all of the basics, and then we add images, image styles that we're going to create image styles for in Drupal so that we can see how they're going to look. And then we combine them as we go down with, here, what is this? Is the, article byline with an image and the person's name and their title. And you can see that we went from individual items like a color or a font or a list, and now they're starting to come together in various combinations as molecules and organisms. This is exactly what Dries was talking about this morning in the Dries note. And everything gets built out here. And another way to view it is up here. You can look at the dates, and there's actually a way, the color coding, there's red and there's yellow and there's green, and you can actually use it for either internal or external approval, so that as things get approved, you change the part of the file name, so it gets to say whether it's in progress, in review, or completed, and so that will change from red to yellow to green. So just by looking at it, you can say, oh yeah, the short date, that's not done yet, but form items, this was done internally, so there wasn't that process, but it is possible. Layouts, we can look at the display suite layouts for nothing. That's a pure layout, so there's nothing really in there. But that's more interesting stuff. You can see that the home page, this is made up of different atoms and molecules and organisms that are earlier. This is pure, just an HTML-generated mock-up, really, and it can be used for client approval. They can see exactly how it's going to work. One of my absolutely favorite thing is you can test responsiveness so beautifully. You can either slide it this way, you can see that things work at any given width, or you can just click, you want a random large size, or go full, pick a breakpoint here. I can put in 999, just like that. That's Pattern Lab. It is an awesome tool, and you can see why we like it so much.
I'm going to flip back over to terminal. All right, npm is done. Let's run power install. So power install is actually just going to run and pull in any dependencies for anything that I'm using for theming purposes. For this example, it's just grabbing bourbon neat. In most cases, I'm not dictating how you guys work. You would use whatever you're comfortable with, okay? But it's it's a package manager as well to be able to pull in those particular components. Once I actually have that done, I can go ahead and run Gulp. Gulp is actually looking for SAS changes. It's generating the pattern lab itself. And as that is sitting there listening for different events, let me actually show you what that Gulp file looks like. We've actually modeled this originally off of Alexi's Gulp file, but I've actually cleaned it up quite a bit. And if you're not familiar with Grunt or Gulp, just think, everybody see that good? Better? It's just a way for you to be able to have processes running in the background that are listening for different things and doing specific actions based off it. So for instance here, patterns change. I'm listening to see if I've changed a pattern, atom, molecule, organism, inside of Pattern Lab, and if so, it'll actually go ahead and copy those patterns as well as run a couple of other things to generate the CSS from the SAS, as well as also go out and clear the Drupal cache for me if there's a template change that needs to take place. This is a great way to kind of automate the front-end ops for you. All right, so now that that's running, let's go ahead and jump over to Drupal real quick. So in Pattern Lab itself, for this, we have a particular layout, okay? It's a really basic, simple header. We got a menu item. We have a 4-column layout here of speakers. So what happens?
It's actually not 4 columns, it's Flexbox.
I got your Flexbox. Oh, I'm just kidding. So this is what it looks like inside of Pattern Lab.
Or no.
Oh, I'm sorry, inside of Drupal when you have actually enabled the theme. So let me back up real quick. Under Appearance, if we actually go to Enable Bartik, this is Demo Gods bit me right now. This is actually what it would look like without, instead using the lovely, everybody like Bartik theme, right? What you should like is the fact that it uses classy. Does everybody know what classy is? Does everybody know who built classy?
Yeah, Ben.
If you like it more and if you hate it, he said John. So basic Bartik theme out of the box, okay? But when I actually go ahead and turn on the Big Easy theme and set this as the default, and go back to the site, it's picking up exactly what was in Pattern Lab over in Drupal. And by the way, it did this without me actually touching a Twig template in Drupal.
So what would happen if we went into Pattern Lab and changed, I think this is an H3, or changed it to an H4 for the titles, the names? What would happen if we did that? No?
Oh, you want me to do that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do it. All right, so let's actually go and jump into Pattern Lab. All right, so Pattern Lab, source, okay, patterns. This is where the actual patterns are taken care of, okay? Atoms, molecules, organisms, templates, okay? And the Drupal templates itself are sitting down here under templates, layout, and patterns, okay? So if I actually want to make a change to this, all I need to know is actually where to go. Make this a little bit bigger.
Those organisms.
Yep. So under meta, I actually have node speaker teaser.html.twig. Okay, again, this is not in Drupal. This is actually over in Pattern Lab. And we'll see what happens here when I make this change. So right now it's an H3. Let's change that to an H4. I'm going to hit save. Let me flip back over to Gulp so you can see what's going on. So it's detected a change, and there we go. It is generated Pattern Lab, and it's actually gone and cleared the cache. So if I go back into Pattern Lab first and refresh.
It was. Did this one change? Well, it's definitely an H3 now.
It's an H4 now.
It's an H4 now. All right.
Yes. And drum roll.
What is it now? What is it now? It's still an H. Is it an H3?
It looks big enough to be an H3. H3. Okay, I haven't refreshed the page yet, right?
Now it's an H4. We made one change in Pattern Lab. The processes in Gulp made sure that that same change happened in Drupal.
Magic.
and so you can extrapolate that. I mean, that's a simple change, H4 to H3, but any change like that is possible. Adding a class, adding a div, adding any kind of HTML structure whatsoever, it can be done themed in Pattern Lab, and those same changes in the structure will get over into your Drupal templates. So,
I was expecting a whole more like, what the?
did you all follow that? Yeah?
So,
Are you as excited about that as I am? Yeah. All right, cool.
Theme once goes everywhere, right?
Yeah. So we're going to make a couple small other points, and then we're going to open up for questions because I hope you have some questions. So first of all, Forum 1, we are looking for front-end and back-end developers, junior and senior level. We have a great team.
So if you thought that was cool, we get to do that stuff.
Yeah. They actually let us play. It's fun. So please come talk to us afterwards, or we're downstairs in booth 406. Also, here, these will be in the slides. These are some important links to Alexi's work. First of all, to the standard Pattern Lab. I think there was some updates to the second one, the Drupal lab there on GitHub by phase 2. Alexi's work on the Shyla theme. There is a Pattern Lab chat room on Gitter. It's up there, and then some links for Gesso. We're going to be doing the Drupal 8 work, and Gesso is coming out as soon as possible. As you can see, we're at work on it, and we're going to have what you saw tonight, this afternoon, hopefully available for open source sharing and all that jazz within a month or so. So, questions, and we can go back and demo lots of different things. Yes, sir, come to the microphone, please. And anyone else who has a question, if you would happily line up at the microphone.
Hey. My name's Derek, and just wanted to say thanks. This is like really, really freaking exciting.
Yeah.
This has kind of been like a brainstorm we've been thinking about and looking at for a while, not with Pattern Lab, but reusing the templates between the prototype and the style guide and actually in Drupal, so awesome.
Thank you.
The question that I have is, where are you declaring in Drupal 8? We've been looking at doing this in Drupal 7 a little bit. But in Drupal 8, where are you declaring those templates that live inside of the Pattern Lab directory? Where are you declaring that they exist?
Yep.
Just inside the info file? Or?
So that's a great question. So if we actually look under organisms, it depends on what you're actually building. So in this case, falling based off of Alexia, we're going to be doing a lot of rearranging on this. But you can see under organisms, there's this meta folder, and inside here, anything that it sees in notices in Pattern Lab that has .html.twig, when Gulp runs, if it sees a change to that, it will notify Drupal and actually pull those over into the templates folder on Drupal side for us, so we no longer have to worry about.
So it's like copying them. It's separate files.
It's doing a copying, but it's no longer am I having to actually go look at the pattern.
Yeah.
Copy the code out of there, go into Drupal, make the template,
so
and actually
like
paste
kind
in there.
Compiling it and saving it.
Right, I can go straight over into Pattern Lab. In this case, for speaker, we're using a teaser display mode. You have to have a little bit of knowledge, obviously, of what Twig might call that template, and you can turn on Twig debugging, and get a better insight into that. But if you take speed it up even more, but if you know, because in this case, I just created node-js speaker-teaser, but that's not really the magic. I mean, we can undo copy and paste, right?
Well, couldn't you just have it like look directly in that directory for the templates rather than having to copy it? Or?
So if you actually look here, I have node speaker teaser, which is actually extending. So it's using Twig extend to actually extend that. Yeah. But I can also use the data transformation plugin to actually pop in additional references to, in this case, the Atom to speaker image into the field speaker image field, so it knows exactly what to display in Drupal. Or in this case, field company for the company name. Yeah. I can pass the classes using attributes for the class, in this case, node-js speaker, and control it all in Pattern Lab. So as the front-end developers, especially if they know how to do any type of site building and all, they're already going to have these correlations running in their head, and you're like, I don't even worry about it over here anymore. I'm just going to do it over here. And there's a build document for the site builder or the developer to just go build out the content type. When the content's done and the theme is on, it's already done over in Pattern Lab, and it's already gotten pulled over automatically into Drupal.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hey, sometimes your Pattern Lab patterns might need to have translations or links in them. How are you handling basically the trans function and the L or the link function in the Pattern Lab patterns?
Yeah, that is a awesome question and something that we haven't even considered yet. Like we said, this is in the early infancy of this concept, but it's definitely something we're going to need to take a look at because we partner with like Lingo Tech to do translation on stuff all the time, so it's definitely a concern.
It's in the Drupal Lab repo that you had posted at the end there. We just got it in yesterday, so.
Did you hear that? Translation is now in there, so we can actually pull this in.
So.
All right.
Yeah.
No, awesome.
you.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Hello.
Hi, John.
So with, yeah, it's fine. Probably should
How much
not-
time is there left?
A little bit.
Half an hour.
So Drupal 7 was basically impossible to reuse templates because we had tpl.php. It was sort of, you just couldn't use them. They were awful templates. With Twig, we have a system that did not come from Drupal. So it's this problem of how do you use the same template in your style guide and inside your application, which is Drupal in this case, is one that's solvable by just using Twig. And so there are two ways to solve this problem using Twig. And one is that you use the exact same file, and it's read by your style guide generator, and it's also read by Drupal, right? And what that means is that you have to pull all the Drupal bits out of your components and just have pure Twig. And that's the route that I've chosen to go because it's really simple, and you've decided to go with doing this data transformation and compiling. It's way harder. And I'm wondering why you decided to do that. It seems more complicated, convoluted, and would require me to like have to write PHP if I have any problems with the way it works.
I don't know that you have to write any PHP. It is more
Well,
complicated. I mean, we talked a little in the hallway, and you said use, what, KSS Note?
Yeah.
Which I've not tried yet, but I'm actually now very curious. We've been using Pattern Lab in Drupal 7 with Drupal 7 for a while for exactly what I showed you earlier with the Forum 1 site. I've been doing that for over a year now with the Pattern Lab version for Gesso in Drupal 7, and it allows me to, outside of Twig, because we're using the Mustache version, to completely componentize the entire website and how I think. And so for us, it was just now that there's Pattern Lab for Twig, Drupal 8 and Twig, it was just the natural next step. If there were other avenues, we haven't explored them yet. Did you have something?
I think that
No,
you could,
no, I know
I really
we
feel
had
like you
talked
could.
earlier too.
I really feel like you could simplify continue to use Pattern Lab.
Yep.
But simplify the way that your workflow actually is by, and this is like super new idea that I just started doing 3 weeks ago. Yeah, and I'm gonna have a couple different boffs about that this week, but.
Well, we'll be there because I'm
Yeah. So Twig is super powerful, and I think that you can simplify your process just by yanking out the Drupal bits and then leaving them in the html.twig file, and then creating just pure components using vanilla Twig. And then you just route the Drupal variables then into your components rather than trying to do these data transformations.
We have to write PHP to do that?
No.
Okay.
You just write Twig, right?
Okay.
It's vanilla Twig.
We will be at your BOF and we can explore this further. No, but thank you. It's great points.
Thanks.
We're actually doing something super similar as well, Phase 2 and Red Hat. And,
Yeah.
we're doing it in D7 though, so it's really cool to see the implementation in D8. I was curious how you go about instantiating the fields in Drupal. Does your JSON actually define the fields, and do they show up in Drupal?
There's the field right there.
So do you have to do anything else to get it to exist in the database?
Nope, I just got to print out content, and the content attribute here actually will
Okay.
bring this actually into the Twig template.
Do you mean on the Drupal side or on the
Yes.
Pattern Lab side?
Drupal side.
Well, yeah, I mean, your developer's still doing site building, so they're
Okay.
telling you, hey, Or in this case, we have a lot of front-end developers that are like, why do I need a developer to work on that? Because I know how to create a content type, and especially with Drupal 8, everything's fieldable, so it makes it much easier.
Right.
Whether it's a content type, whether it's a paragraph bundle, whether it's a block.
Well, we're using the paragraphs module, and we wrote something called Pattern Builder Importer that watches the JSON files and imports and creates those database fields in Drupal, and make sure that it reuses them properly if it already exists. But we can define all the same like components and reuse them in patterns and combine them in different ways.
So, yeah, go ahead.
So forum1.com, which we released in Drupal 8, anybody want to guess how that was built? That's a giant node with paragraph bundles. So everything's componentized.
Yeah.
Yeah, every page on the site is like that.
Is
And yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's two schools of thought. Some people hate paragraphs, some people love paragraphs, but paragraph bundles, if you haven't worked with it, really kind of works hand in hand with Pattern Lab as far as how you might componentize things. And I don't know about you, but like I hate field collections and all that other stuff that goes
Well,
with
I'll
it. So
leave the
paragraphs
let
just
other
makes
people
it
ask
easy.
questions, but I wondered if you could show the admin side of it too, like if you're editing a content type.
The admin side of,
Like if you're actually a content editor and you're managing a piece of content
Oh.
on the site.
just looks like you would any other content type. So there's the speaker content type, there's field company, field speaker image. So as long as the front-end developer this is the only place where they actually have to communicate with you, back-end developers still. Just kidding. As long as they know what the field names are. In this case, we have node speaker, teaser, twig. That is, say that 3 times fast. That's extending the HTML twig template, but we also have a JSON file. So as long as we are utilizing JSON and passing the content with those field names, we can put text values in there. We can reference other patterns inside of Pattern Lab itself. In this case, an image, so that it then pulls through. And then those actually are just getting written, you know, back into here as well. So.
So you're still defining the whole admin experience from within Drupal?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, just follow up on it.
Yeah.
Into the mic, please, so that the people in the recording.
Is the work being
Sorry.
Always gets pushed.
What was that? One more time.
So is the work being duplicated? So when the content's being entered into the admin area, it's not dynamically creating variables or anything in that JSON. So
No,
like,
that's
the
done
front-
manually right now.
It's manually.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's the thing. Let's take Pattern Lab out of the whole equation for right now. If I want to create a twig template for a specific page, I number one have to know what Drupal is using to display that content. If I want to override core, not hack core, override core, then I need to make a copy of that into my theme, make sure I use one of the file name suggestions. So that process you have to do already. So what we said was, well, why do that process? Why have the front-end developers do something similar, especially when it originally was a mustache? Have them do it in Twig. Oh, how can we marry the two together and have it so that once that template exists already in Pattern Lab, just copy. And in fact, I'm having some brain thoughts based on what John had talked about. We probably don't even need to do that part because Drupal doesn't care where the Twig template is as long as it finds it inside your theme. So I think I might just eliminate a step. Thank you, John. So you're eliminating that step. Yes, you may have to do it first in Pattern Lab, but it's copying over. Now, if I want to change a heading like you saw, if I want to add a class, if I want to add additional markup, I'm doing it over in Pattern Lab where the front-end developer has full control over it, and the client's generally seeing that before they even see what's happening in Drupal.
Gotcha.
Gulp runs. Now it's over in Drupal. Don't have to worry about it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. All right.
Next, please. Sorry, sit down.
I got my speaking tablet. No, so I'm looking at it and that looks all good. But so one of the things I've been experimenting with the last couple of months, actually ever since we reorganized all the file structures for classy and all that core, was and I see this file structure is very specific. Is there any way of mapping yourself out of it? So let's say I come in with a theme that mapped up in a complete other way. Is there any way of like saying, hey, where do my files live? Do they have always to live in this file structure? can I break that completely and move stuff around as I want to?
So you're talking about the file structure for Pattern Lab or for the theme or?
For all of it. I mean, you drop it. It's like, do we
Where's it?
end up having like two different ways of thinking?
Yep.
If
The
I begin to
config.yaml, right?
reorganize my stuff, do I end up getting caught up in this is Pattern Lab structure? Fair enough. That's if we know that's the rules. That's what we tell people.
In config. 1 second. There is a config.yaml. So this is the for Pattern Lab, the config.yaml, which is showing, for example, the public directory, the source directory, whether you're using Twig auto escape, Twig debug, and style. No, where's the other thing I was thinking?
Oh yeah, you can Twig debug inside of Pattern Lab if you really want to.
But the actual structure, what you're asking, no, it doesn't matter at all.
I just drop in however my theme is built,
Yeah.
and then we just roll with it. Then it will.
That's the power of the starter kits, is that you take your theme, however it is, and you drop in your starter kit, and you need patterns which are going to mimic what you think Drupal's going to
all right.
be giving
So,
you.
so we're not going to have issues with people coming in and saying, hey, I built my stuff this way, and all my files are living over here, and my image files is living in the same folders, and I'm like doing these and those things, and I can like pretty easily import that structure.
That structure should stay intact. You bring in Pattern Lab inside your theme doc root. If you don't want it in your repo, git ignore, fine. Same thing if you're going to use a starter kit to have this all work together.
So you
But
can,
yeah, it
you
doesn't
can,
care.
You can
It doesn't care how your theme is built.
Okay, so you can actually end up opting out of Pattern Lab. Be like, no, I want to use Pattern Lab 2 because Pattern Lab 2 is way more epic, or somebody else built something completely new. So you
Yeah,
don't
they're-
end up getting caught up in the system.
They're
Okay.
independent pieces.
Sweet.
Hey, I'm really excited about this concept. I'm looking forward to implementing it where I work. And I just had a couple questions about the compiler that you're using. From patternlabs.io, it suggests using Compass. And I see you're using Gulp, and I just wondered if there were any drawbacks.
So
Or limitations.
we're either quickly moving away from Compass, just because of Ruby dependencies on compiling, so we use libsass. So as far as Gulp versus Grunt, it's apples and oranges. In fact, in production, we use Grunt, JavaScript task builder, just because we have a lot of other things with our Vagrant instance and our virtual machine, and doing things like actually installing those dependencies and building them.
More magic! I did that on purpose.
EOL?
That too.
Into lab. There you go. Thank you. Short answer. It's dead. Cool. No. It's dying. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Okay, before we go, we got to think of some good questions. So I just released a Drupal 8 theming with Twig book. That's available. I actually have I have 6 digital copies here. I mean, I could just hand them to the front and you guys could open up your computers and just pass it all the way back too, but obviously not in it for the money. I'm in it to give back to the community. So help me think of some questions here.
Oh, dude, my brain's fried. I don't know.
What is Morton can't answer. What is Morton's favorite color?
Who said that?
In the back. There you go.
Yes.
Very specific answer. Yes. Come get the digital copy.
BADA55, in case, and no one heard that.
All right. Make sure you raise your hand, not shout this out. I forgot to mention the rules.
Last call for questions. Are there any more questions in the? Yes, sir. Come up to the mic. Yeah, to the mic, please.
My question is basically just in Pattern Lab in general, as using it as a kind of a mock-up tool to show a client. Do you ever use it and like fully style it using the CSS, like instead of just showing it as a black and white kind of wireframe? Do you ever go all out with full style and then like host it somewhere so they can take a look at it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is how we use it. All components fully themed out. Components brought together from molecules to organisms to templates to pages, and what gets reviewed by the client. I mean, the components I review with the designer and the UX person. So like components.
You can go access our pattern lab for Forum 1 right now just by going to themes, Jessa, pattern lab, public index.html. Every single component that needed to be there. This is the power with pattern lab is I don't need to create PSD, Photoshop, Sketch, whatever you're using, pages for every single thing, because if you really take a look and break down a site, it's reusing 75%
exactly,
of the same elements. So.
The button, I mean, this is a special button probably because of the icon. Button register. But all the button styles are going to be the same everywhere. But what we show the client, though, of course, is going to be the individual pages. They're not going to, often they're not going to make as much sense of the actual components. The components are more for internal review, because once I, as a front-end developer, get my designer to sign off on a component, when she comes back, if she wants off on one comp, this is 10 pixels that way or 10 pixels that way, I make the executive decision, and it's like, she's already signed off on it. We don't have to waste time. It's not about pixel perfect anymore, because more general rules. I will frequently go to my designers and say, let's pick a generic margin. So in the right column, what's the distance between panes? Is it 20 pixels? Is it 40 pixels? Is it 4 Ms? I don't care. But that's going to be standardized, and I don't care what's in the comp. If she has 3 different items in the right sidebar, that's the gutter between them. Right? It's general, as much generic rules, and that's what Pattern Lab really helps you enforce, and it helps the designers understand. They see it and they go, oh, this is so much, because they're just dumping stuff sometimes into PSD files. But it's if you're a completely pedantic like I am when it comes to front-end development, I want as few rules as possible. I'm going for the fewest lines of code, the fewest the smallest markup, and the most easily maintainable, least breakable by the client. I mean, all of these things go into how I envision it, and Pattern Lab allows me to execute that and test it, and then it's done. Almost never is something that I build in Pattern Lab a month later, further in development, break, because you've thought about it in individual pieces.
So you can go from having kind of a black and white thing, this is what we're generally thinking, then actually show them full design, and then when you're ready to actually put it into Drupal, just kind of use that same CSS that you were already using and just kind of dump it in, because it's using all the same selectors.
Well,
exactly.
Drupal's using the same CSS that Pattern Lab is, because it's inside our theme folder.
Oh, so you just told it to look in that CSS as well?
Well, it's the same. It's the same CSS. In Drupal 8, that's what we're showing. Is it's so much simpler. In Drupal 7, I have to use display suite and panels clean markup and all of these other tools to really massage the markup to get as close as possible to what I did in Pattern Lab. And sometimes it's not possible. But in Drupal 8, I mean, that's the magic here, is that it's the same.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, great question. Here you go. Oh, that's right.
Oh, very nice. Very nice.
Next question.
Hey, my name's Rob.
Hey, Rob.
I have a. Oh, hey, thank you. So Pattern Lab, it was originally written in PHP.
Yeah.
Someone ported it to Node.js. So are you using the PHP version here of Pattern Lab or the Node version?
We're using the PHP or the Node.js version. I'm pretty sure it's the Node.js version.
Yeah.
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 Hence
so,
npm install and all that jazz.
Right.
Yeah.
So people have done some work to port Twig over to Node as well. So what kind of parity is there? Is there any way that we could use the Node version alongside the PHP? Is that just kind of crazy? Am I going into alien territory here?
Yeah. Totally worth discussing, and we hadn't thought that far.
Yeah.
No, it's a great question. I personally haven't looked that deep at it, because we just pick the flavor we want and go. And
So it's the PHP version that you are installing into the theme here, and then
no, this is Node.js.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, interesting. Because you were installing, what were you installing with Composer at that point then?
Oh, so when you first install Pattern Lab, when you actually go to the Git repo and pull Pattern Lab down, you would run Composer install to actually
Right.
go and grab all the dependencies that
Got
Pattern
it.
Lab needs. And then Pattern Lab actually has a generator inside of that, so it's behind the scenes is actually doing PHP core, Pattern Lab generate.
I see. All right, thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
So you mentioned that one of the benefits of this is being able to get to the front end portion of this earlier without having the site building portion. Is there, and you mentioned clearly talking with the developer to see field names, et cetera, to make this easily poured over. How do you handle that from a front end perspective? If I'm given a project and I know nothing about it, do you spec out those field names ahead of time and then give that to the front end developer, or?
Yeah, so as a tech, I'll put my tech arc hat on real quick. So as a technical architect, I would meet with a client, we'd have a kickoff meeting. Through that iteration process, whether it's content strategy, whether it's UX, we start to form a picture of identifying what content types, what fields should be with those content types, and then I would actually generate, or another tech arc would actually generate a build document that is simply really just an Excel spreadsheet or a Google Doc, whatever you want to use, that has the content type, it has the field listings in there. The other things as a tech arc would be our responsibility to make sure we look and see. Drupal 7, we're more field independent, meaning we really be specific with our fields. The way with configuration management actually works in Drupal 8, now we actually really try to reuse our fields because I don't want to have 100 field twig templates. I'm sure Morton can agree with that one. So we'll reuse those fields across, but those will all be identified ahead. So we'll know, hey, for instance, for the speaker, speaker has a name, a bio, an image, the company. Oh, and by the way, that image, I have 4 other content types that are going to use an image field. They're all going to look the same, meaning that it's a file upload for an image, and I can create whatever display modes I need for that to have them be different sizes. Use breakpoint, whatever for responsive points to make sure different image styles load. So I'm going to reuse that same field image across those 5 content types as well. So hopefully that helps answer.
Yeah, so that basically means that you're dictating what the components are before it hits the front end?
No, the client's dictating what should be there through the discussion with them of what that content looks like in a wireframe more than likely, and what fields that the content strategist has identified. From there, yeah, the machine names for the fields, yeah, but I mean, what are you going to call a field image besides field image?
Right.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But the front end developer can go ahead and build some of those out ahead of time. If you have to change it in the Twig template, to change from field image to field featured image, I mean, just because that's what the dev named it, that's not that big of a deal. You've already themed it. You already know what it's going to look like. You're just changing a class name. It's not, maybe the file name. It's not that complicated.
Probably not even class name, just changing the attribute in the JSON file that you saw to
That's right.
match
That's
the right field name. So.
There you go. Sir.
General question about Pattern Lab. So when you're building these out for the client or for yourselves, the components, the atoms, the molecules, and the organisms, are you building them page first and then kind of dividing it out backwards, or?
Myself, no. I actually prefer to work with the designer. I get basically a style guide and I theme that out like this all. I literally start here with the colors and then the fonts, and then I work my way, because once I get my way down all of these basic things, there's form elements in here, and that begins to, and where are the form elements? Did you guys do the form elements?
Yeah, you passed one. That's fine.
Did? Oh.
Because the components inherit from the atoms.
Form,
The
no.
layouts
There we go,
or
forms.
molecules inherit from the components and the atoms. So you generally try to start as small as possible because you're building on top of that, because you're just not, it's like going shopping. Okay? I already know what my apple and my orange is going to look like, and I'm going to make a fruit salad. I'm just going to grab the apple I already had and the orange I already had, and there I got it.
This search bar is probably a little high because there's probably a container around it that it's expecting that's not there. But you can see that, so all of this stuff, the pagination, it all can be themed before you even look at any Drupal install, right? You still, and then I usually go from there to the header and the footer, make sure they're responsive using all of the great tools here in Pattern Lab, so that all the response, so that I do the mobile menu, I do all of that stuff. And then you start off with a couple, your teasers that are going to show up in view modes, your basic, then your node, your detail pages. And then landing pages, home pages come last, you know, and then usually there are repeated blocks or panes in the right column. I'll do those as individual things as they come up in the pages. But when I get to the pages, I already have the look and feel of the site permeating, and it's already in Drupal too, you know, because it's that's even in the Drupal 7 stuff. Before we forget, we really need to make a point
Phenomenal, guys.
This. Please, here are the slides again, and please, 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 you can either find our session on the DrupalCon site or go to this bit.ly link, dcon-bigeasy-eval. Please, please evaluate us. Hopefully, you liked us.
If you liked it, evaluate us. If you don't like us, my name's Martin. This is John Alvin. Thank you.
But thank you. We had so much fun. Thank you for coming. And if you have any other questions, just come on up. Thank you.
I have 2 more. Whoever wants a copy of my book, just don't kill each other coming up. Oh, there you go, right there. Anybody else?
Hey, thanks for coming. She wants one?
Huh? If you